to discover the Jewish roots of your Christian faith. I'm Jonathan Bernis. Thanks for joining us. I think we all recognize that biblical values are deteriorating around the world. In fact, our guest today says the system of the Antichrist is literally crouching at our door. He believes that war is inevitable and imminent, but he comes today with a word from the Lord about how we are to plan and prepare for battle. Here's some background on our guest today, Dr. Chuck Pierce. Welcome, my dear friend, Dr. Chuck Pierce. Chuck, thanks for being with us. So great to have you.
Wonderful.
I have wanted you on this program for so long. I love you. I deeply respect you, and I'm so glad you could make it here to Phoenix.
Well, I've wanted to be on this program for so long. I follow what you're doing, and I think this program is one of those that really sets the course for days ahead on how to hear what the Spirit of God is saying to the church as well as to the people of God all over.
Well, Chuck, one of the things that I think really binds me to you, that draws me to you, is a deep prophetic understanding of Jewish believers and the role that the Jewish people in Israel play in God's future for the world.
Jonathan, it was really interesting. When the Lord visited me when I was 18, some way He revealed His covenant with His land and His people to me. And it's been a maturing revelation of it. But I can say when I was 18, He showed me the tribes. He showed me His plan for His people. He gave me a heart for Israel. And I know we've had the Messianic movement. We've had things like that. But I see us moving toward one new man. I saw that it was very important that the church understand God's timing. Not just how the feast all occur and what happens in the feast and all of that, but it's the timing of the Lord over harvest. How they are, how His timing always was linked with harvest. And I think that really is what the church has lost. The power of covenant and the understanding of harvest. And then when you really understand first fruits, you're understanding that He would gather His people based upon the alignment of the God of the stars, Lord Sabaoth, and the earth realm. And in that alignment, that's when He would release prophetic revelation to them. So when I first started doing first fruit, when God spoke that to me, He said, if you want to see your life restored and your family restored, and I'm talking about my family had been scattered, not my immediate family that I have now, my dad, my mother, all of that. He had acquired all of the inheritance of his 12 brothers and sisters. The place was called Rehoboth, if you can imagine that. And he died a very tragic death when he was 39. And God spoke to me. He said, I can restore what you've lost. But He took me to Proverbs chapter 3, and He said to me that if you will do first fruits and give me your first fruits, I will fill your barns and I'll give you new wine. Now, that was when I was 18, and I can honestly sit here before you now, so many years later, in my mid-60s now, and say, I started then, and I have never looked back.
By the way, it's not too late. If you need your barn filled, if you need
Totally.
your wineskins filled, it's not too late to start now. The Lord has a divine plan for you. There's revelation going on here. I don't want people to miss it.
And all of you out there, first fruits isn't some legalistic dimension. It's where you're giving the Lord your best. See, we get all messed up in the tithing concept. I think that's what has happened with the church. It's gotten involved in the legality of worship rather than understanding the expression and the relationship of worship. And in the midst of it, in first fruits, that's not an Old Testament thing. Jesus said it this way, seek ye first the kingdom. Yeshua said it when he said that. And if we will seek him first, give him our first portion of what we receive, I'm going to tell you what, your whole life is going to be directed.
Chuck, I want to change direction, and I want to talk about what you are seeing and hearing as a prophetic voice as you travel around the world. A lot of people are approaching this with fear. They're seeing the terrorism, they're seeing the economic instability, they're seeing Iran, they're seeing North Korea developing nuclear weapons, or already developed nuclear weapons, as in the case of North Korea, and there's a lot of fear. What's ahead?
If you really understand from a Hebraic standpoint about warfare means you have the grace to fight. There is a supernatural grace for us during this season. I mean, it's not like we're just out there having to contend. God is bringing grace down from heaven upon us. You have to understand that how a land aligns and how a land recognizes his land helps determine their future. How a land recognizes his people and how that land helps motivate his people into the fullness of his plan. And I've written a bunch of this. I've actually recorded it in 3 books, and I asked the Lord one question. I said, Lord, how are we going to see America shift? Because America has great influence worldwide. This was 2008, May 31st, and the Lord said, America must learn to play the trump card. Now,
really?
Here we are.
In 2008.
In 2008. Here we are in this scenario now with Mr. Trump now becoming president. Now, this is what I want to say to us. God is invading governmental structures all over the world.
Beautiful.
I mean, it's not about an individual.
It's happened in America. We've seen it with our own eyes.
I think these next 3 years redefines how nations are aligned. I think we'll see the goat nations and the sheep nations start separating. And this is what I saw 8 years ago. America hung in the balance. This year, we have the opportunity to shift back toward our covenant plan. See, God showed me the covenant roots of this nation, where they were, how they were either corroded or how they weren't existing or functioning. And I want to say, I really believe you're going to see Israel develop just what this says, a voice to the world.
Chuck, to me, that's amazing, a complete realignment, not just for nations, but for the church, to understand that aligning with Israel is key to how God judges nations. It's absolutely incredible. We have to take a break, but we'll be right back with... you just joined us, my guest today is Dr. Chuck Pierce, a dear friend, a prophetic voice in the world today. And he's just written a new book. It's called A Time to Triumph, How to Win the War Ahead. And I want you to listen to me. You can win the war ahead. You can win it in your personal life. You can win it in terms of your calling. You can win it for your family. This is God's time. And Chuck, when we left off, you were saying that this year is a year of dividing. Can you unpack that for us?
Well, always look at the Hebrew calendar. I mean, our calendar is always connected with the year that is linked with Hebrew as well. But this is the year of 7. Now, in Hebrew, it's 5777. That means there's 3 sevens aligned. We will never see that again in our history. And 7 is linked with the concept of finishing something, not just starting something new, but finishing. Now, all of you out there, you have promises, you have things you've been going through. This is a year for you to finish strong. Now, I want you to think like that. Now, to do that, you're going to have to come into an understanding that 7 is also linked with a sword. So that means God is going to divide. The Spirit of the Lord is going to come through. The Word is quick and powerful and sharper than a two-edged sword, piercing asunder soul and spirit. So probably each one of us are going through some sort of dividing issue in our soulish nature this year.
Now, you talk about a warrior spirit, and by the way, I've been feeling that division, Chuck. I have had and it's been a divine dissatisfaction with where I'm at, with where the ministry's at, which is why we just shut things down and took a week off of fasting and prayer.
I think
every
one of you need to hear this. You have to do this right now. You've got to pull aside because the Lord is cutting away the last season. It's almost like a circumcision that's going on in us. My new grandson this morning was circumcised, and it's just a cutting away that's occurring. We're cutting off the reproaches of the past. We're cutting off the failures of the past. All of you out there. But it's because this year's the defining year for the next season.
The old has passed away, and all things are to become new. And we are in a war. We fight not against flesh and blood, but principalities and powers. This is a war, and you talk about it in your book that we need a warrior spirit.
To do that, we have to develop a different way of thinking. So I actually write a chapter in here about a new mindset, a new mindskin for a new wineskin. In other words, you're not going to get into what God's doing right now if you hang on to every old thought process you have. If you're not willing to allow this division to occur in your own life. And so this is part of the preparation. Think about Esther for that year she went through, where she had to prepare herself. Then all of a sudden she was called up. Now I think that's what's happening this year. We're in this incredible preparation time. But this book is called A Time to Triumph, and actually when God said, you must learn to play the trump card, that's what the word triumph means. It means that if you're a card player, you're going to have a card that your opponent can't usurp you with. And I believe that's what God's doing with His people. He's going to get us to a place where we're not going to be so reactive to the enemy, but what we're going to do is actually watch and at the right time play the right word that will fail the enemy. And the enemy won't have a play over it. And I want to encourage every one of you, God is doing something in you. There's a shift, there's a transition going on. There's something that's pulling you out of that familiar cycle. I say it this way. Most of us don't understand Psalms 23 is really, if you want to summarize that, it's not a shepherd's psalm. It's about God, Jehovah Rohi saying, I can break you out of lack and cause you to make a new cycle in your life. Now, I want to say in this, if you don't hear anything else we're saying, God is calling us this year to make a new cycle. This year is linked with the sword coming down to cut us loose from things that have been causing us to drag around.
Hindering us.
And we're all going through it. We've all got this this friction going on in us because we know we're going through this process. But in the midst of it, you are making a new cycle of blessing, a new cycle of joy. Actually, you are making the cycle for your future this year. America is making the cycle for its future.
Yes.
That's why I see the Lord had to interrupt the structure of that ruled us.
Yeah, and it was miraculous. We have to take a break. I just want you to get this clear into your spirit right now. God is doing something in you. He's doing something in the church. He's doing something in America, but He's doing something in you and your family. I'm talking with Dr. Chuck Pierce about the revelations in a new book that he's written, A Time to Triumph. And I want to tell you this. This has been an incredible interview. God is changing things. This is a year of change. This is a year where He is dividing the old from the new. The year we're in right now on the Hebrew calendar is 5777. 3 sevens in a row. It will never happen again in history, and it means something. Chuck, this is the year of change. This is the year of division. It's all happening. We don't want to miss it.
See, that 70 means you're breaking out of captivity. Now, I want you to listen to this out there. We're breaking out of captivity, and this year, 7, we're finishing strong. We're coming out of what controlled us, and we're going to see a lot of things, loose ends tied up, and then we're breaking into and making a whole new cycle. Now, you can stick with our calendar, 17. That actually means victory. So if you want to stick with our calendar, that means this year you're ending and starting a new cycle of victory. So I just want to encourage you, wherever you're at, whatever mindset you have, if you belong to the Lord, this is still your dividing year.
There's a lot of 7s flying around. Don't miss it. Chuck, we just have a minute left. Would you prophetically minister to the people that are watching?
I want to say to you, let me just pray, and all of you here in the audience, the Lord would say to you right now, this is a season where even though you don't see your path fully, I am cutting ahead of you. I am causing you right now to move into a walk with me that you've never been in before. You're going to get in sequence. You're going to get in cadence. You're going to get in a new order, and you're going to break through into that place. If you're out there and you do not know the Lord, I want to say to you, don't miss Yeshua, who created you, who knit you together. The Father knit you together in your mother's womb. Yeshua wants to come in, envelop you, empower you with the Spirit of Yeshua inside of you, and cause you to see your path ahead. I decree right now, fear is bound from you. This is not a season of fear. I loose an abundant grace on you. You have the grace to win every conflict that you're in. I decree on your path you will win the conflicts ahead. And I decree this ministry will have a voice to lead us through into conflicts and cause us to align back into God's covenant land and with His people, Israel, in days ahead.
Amen. Wow.
What a blessing.
I received that, Chuck. Thank you so much. God is good.
What a blessing.
Wonderful to have you. Listen, as believers in Jesus, you don't have to fear the threat of the enemy. We only have to trust in God's plan for our life. We have to seek His direction. We have to be people of worship. God is dividing out the old, and He wants you to enter into the new. Remember, if you have prayer needs, we're here for you. You can log on to our website. It's jvmi.tv. We're here to help you. And just know, God loves you, and so do we. I want to thank Dr. Chuck Pierce for joining us today. And as I do on every program, I want to remind you to pray for the peace of Jerusalem, Psalm 122:6, and it tells us, may they prosper who love thee. So if you love Israel, pray for Israel, and God will prosper you today. So do it. Pray for Israel. It's a new day for you.